How's it going, and welcome to No Fun Allowed's guide series on Curse of Strahd, a 5th edition module. We are now on part 6 of our Ravenloft series. I can just feel it. We're so close. We're right there. But we're going to be kicking things off soon. Players do not watch this. DMs that want added insight on all these locations, go ahead and stick around because there is so much to cover. Picking up from last time, we are now on to Area 68, the Guard's Run. It's literally just a hallway that, is accessible to the next location, the Guard's Quarters, and the Hall of Bones, and the staircase that leads all the way up and down this monumental location. In Area 69, we discovered that this place is not nice. When your players make their way inside of here, they can see that sickly yellow lichen covers the ceiling of this cold, damp room. If your players make their way inside of here, thankfully, the lichen is harmless. It is not yellow mold or anything. However, when one of our characters reaches the midway point of this hall, 10 human skeletons are going to leap out from the alcoves and attack. So it states here that they are just simply chilling in here, that they just leap out. What I would go ahead and recommend is that these skeletons be part of the walls, be part of the lichen, and have them be extremely hard to discern from the rest of the location. Maybe you can go ahead and allow them a DC 15 or a 20 perception check in order to witness these skeletons, as they're basically just latched to the wall. But, make sure that they just don't have skeletons spawning out of thin air. In Area 70, we have the Kingsmen Hall. This location can be accessed from multiple ways: the Hall of Bones, Area 71, Rahadin's office. We'll be getting to all that in a moment. This location doesn't have anything too fancy or spectacular about it, except located in here are the remains of several of Strahd's guards that fled here when he transformed into a vampire. Strahd, of course, hunted down all these guards and slew them. What's very interesting to note here is that removing one of those shields or swords from the wall requires a DC 10 strength check. These things, however, are just mundane weapons, which of course can lead to, those occasions where your players get disarmed in Castle Ravenloft. Either some of the denizens steal their weapons, or they just come up here empty in the first place. Whatever the case may be, having some spare weapons could always prove useful. In Area 71, we have the Kingsmen's quarters. Once again, more of this yellow lichen, which is harmless. However, located in one of these alcoves is in fact a little treasure hoard. Inside of a loose flagstone is in fact a little moldy sack containing 150 electrum. That's pretty gross. A moldy sack of, coins. The coins would probably be a little bit gross too. And to find these, you only need to pass a DC 10 perception check. Not bad. And for the last location on the Larders of Ill Omen, we have the Chamberlain's office. It is here where your players can find Rahadin if he has not been defeated elsewhere. This location just simply serves as, Rahadin's office, where he presumably spends his time working. He doesn't really have much to do. The Strahd administration isn't really that proactive in sort of affairs. So, that really depends on the kind of campaign that you're running, how much Strahd interferes with the goings-ons in the land, and how much Rahadin is actually doing. I'd imagine Rahadin would be sort of bored half the time, because if he's not doing much, he's, just forced to sit here. But the thing is that Rahadin is not alone in this room. If your players come into contact with Rahadin here, there will be weapons raised and a fight will ensue. But Rahadin's got some backup in the shape of a shadow demon located in the corner. Go ahead and have the shadow demon roll its stealth check before your players show up here. And when your players show up here and try to look around to see if there's anything, then you can go ahead and compare the stealth check versus their perception check. A fight will ensue here, as written, if your players go up against Rahadin. And a fight with Rahadin is actually pretty scary. So, as always, I'm going to go over Rahadin in the Castle Ravenloft stuff. But let's go ahead and just take a quick look at how strong this guy is. 18 AC, he can dodge quite a lot of hits. 135 HP, he is going to be surviving a lot of blows. But look here. He has 3 attacks with his short sword at a plus 10, so he is practically guaranteed to hit, right? He is doing 1d6 plus 6 damage. That is a lot. But that's not all. He's not only just swinging his sword around and being fancy, he also has that deathly choir. Anyone within 10 feet of Rahadin can hear the screams of the damned coming out from Rahadin's poor, tormented, and, wretched soul. During everyone else's rounds, these things are just a mere nuisance. They don't do anything. But on his turn, on Rahadin's turn, he can use a bonus action to cause anyone that can hear this sound, they must make immediately a DC 16 wisdom saving throw or take 3d10 psychic damage, and they take half as much on a success. So that is guaranteed damage. He is automatically doing damage to a bunch of people in the party, unless they have the Mind Blink spell. He's hitting people with this Deathly Choir. He's practically guaranteed to hit people with that Scimitar. And if for some strange reason there is a weird prolonged combat where melee is not an option, Rahadin's also got a backup. He has Poison Darts, which you can go ahead and throw out from a distance, and they do 1d4 plus 6 piercing damage, plus 2d4 poison damage. So he has options. He can beat up the people in the melee, he can meander about the area and go ahead and enact that Deathly Choir. He is quick, he has a 35 movement because he is a Dusk Elf, which is a variation of a Wood Elf. This guy is incredibly tough. Also, he can get out of a lot of sticky situations. He has the Misty Step spell, and this allows him to meander about whenever he desires. Of course, if he uses the Misty Step, then he can't enact his Deathly Choir, but sometimes that might be more advantageous. He could go ahead and slip past an area and beat up on the squishy casters in the back or whatever. He has Magic Weapon, so if for some reason the party has a resistance to certain types of damage, he could go ahead and cast that Magic Weapon on his Scimitar and beat up on whoever dares have resistance. He has non-detection, so if for some strange reason, there's a prolonged fight and your players need to see this guy, he can go ahead and, do that non-detection stuff. The Phantom Steed, that's not going to work in combat. It takes a minute to cast, but if, once again, there's a prolonged engagement and, the people run away, or if he's able to get away, he can go ahead and, find a safe spot, do that, and be able to charge all through Castle Ravenloft at a record pace. And as previously mentioned, he has a Shadow Demon lurking in the corner. This is going to help him out greatly because, of course, the more enemies that your PCs are going up against, the worse it is for them. The Shadow Demon isn't all that great. It only has a +5 to hit, but it does do a lot more damage when it gets that connect in. So, this thing can be pretty helpful in a fight. What's really interesting here is, of course, Rahadin uses this as his office, and he's just got this, casual Shadow Demon lurking in the corner that he's befriended, presumably, because they obviously work together. But the thing is that there's no cool swag here. There is nothing. Which is interesting because, there's a ton of other locations in the entirety of the castle that have cool swag. Why wouldn't the Chamberlain, the brother, air quote brother of Strahd, not have anything cool in his office? Who knows? Maybe he just doesn't care about, physical objects. He doesn't care about earthly possessions. Maybe that is sort of his whole spiel. Both Rahadin and the demon will go ahead and fight to the death, and if your players go ahead and search around the room, like a lot of the cool places in here, they can discover a secret door, and that secret door leads to Area 79. Yes, we're finally on the last map. Too bad it's literally the most in-detailed one, so this is going to take forever, but who cares? Now on to Area 73, the Dungeon Hall. Your players make their way through here, either through that spiral staircase, or they somehow got themselves located elsewhere. They start making their way through this hall, and that is when they're going to notice that this place sucks because the water is 3 feet deep here. That means, people that are of the shorter variety are going to have a terrible time here. And the people that are even at the taller, they're still going to be having water up to their waist or their knees or whatever. Located all throughout this hallway are a series of trap doors, but these trap doors cannot be seen natively because the water is mucking up the place. But this trap has a pretty elaborate scheme here. For every 10 pounds of weight that hits one of these trap doors, there is a 5% chance that the trap door will open. What does that mean? That means if you have a gnome, for example, that is wearing nothing at all, and has no gear, no loot, no nothing, and weighs exactly 40 pounds, that gnome has a 20% chance of falling into one of these trap doors. But of course, that is on the extreme lower end. More often than not, you have gear on you. So it's very important that you make sure you see what your characters have in their possession, because if they are, let's say, a 150-pound individual that has 50 pounds of gear, that means they weigh 200 pounds in total, and that means they have a 100% chance of activating this trap door. More than likely, most characters in all of D&D are going to be above 200 pounds because of not only what they weigh natively, but also the gear that they're carrying. So more often than not, it's not going to matter. You don't need to roll anything. But in those very, very small hedge cases where you do have a lighter character, go ahead and roll. And that's hilarious because if you have that light, rogue individual that walks up and nothing happens, then all of a sudden that heavy, raging barbarian just falls right through. That is pretty hilarious. So what happens when you fall through? Well, as we can see here, we got some labels A, C, D, E, and H. When your players step onto this thing and they activate it, then all of a sudden an explosion of water rings out and that individual falls, but they get teleported to one of the little prisons located in areas 74 and 75. After that person gets teleported, the trapdoor will reset, and the trapdoor won't be activated for another 24 hours. So to prevent any sort of metagaming, I would have forward knowledge of how much people weigh, and, just to make sure that you're not asking them, oh yeah, as you step there, how much do you weigh? Because obviously they're going to know that something's up. So as your players are meandering about this location, you should go ahead and emphasize that this is difficult terrain. It is 3 feet high of water. Think about that. If you're a 5 foot tall individual, that is more than half of your body submerged in water. That's just the way it is. The door connecting to Area 74, however, states that the water submerged here is 5 feet deep of water. So shorter people are going to be swimming at this point. And of course, the taller people are going to be, trying to climb up over the water. And also in Area 74, the water is once again 5 feet high. So shorter characters are not going to be having a fun time here. No one's going to be having a fun time here. Basically, the ceiling is right there, and really there isn't much wiggle room to work with. However, once they open up this place, they can see that there are a bunch of 10-foot little square cells, and of course, they'll be able to see all the fun contents within. So if your players make it through here and they haven't activated any of the traps, they're just going to look around and say, oh, neat, prisons. But more than likely, if you're getting to this location, it's more than likely that someone got, transported to one of these cells. So people are going to want to get the heck out of here. In which case, your players can go ahead and make a DC 20 Thieves Tools check to go ahead and break the lock. However, the check is made with disadvantage if the character is trying to pick the lock from the inside of the cell. If the character fails, the character can try again. But it states here that whenever you make one of these checks, it takes a full minute to do so. So yes, theoretically, if you have someone that can pull this off, they could do it over time. It would take a long time if you have disadvantage. You're trying to, break yourself out. But it would take a while, and that is a factor, right? Time is a big deal in a mega dungeon. How much is going on when your players are meandering about, and after a few minutes, then you go ahead and roll on that random encounter table, because at some point something may creep up on them. A character can, however, force open the bar door by using an action and succeeding on a DC 25 strength check. So there is a bunch of characters who physically just could not do this. It's not physically possible. But of course, some people can strong arm this thing. And I would go ahead and do the same thing where you just have it be, you can make these checks over and over again, but it takes a full minute. In which case, after some time, eventually some random encounter is going to occur. Now for the fun bits. In Area A, we have Forgotten Treasure. Your players look inside of here, feel on the ground, and there they can discover 3,000 Electrum pieces. My goodness, they're rich. A character can scoop up 100 coins every minute. That's something we always forget about whenever you're picking up loot. You would not be able to count out gold immediately. You wouldn't be able to look at a pile of gold and say, yeah, that's that much. And it would take a long time to pick up this gold. So it does make sense, We pick up 100 coins and you're just picking them up. You pick them up by 2s and 3s and you can count them out. That makes a lot of sense. In Area B, we have 100 platinum pieces scattered on the ground here. My goodness, they're going to be rich. And this one is actually open, so there is no check required to go ahead and make their way inside of here. In Area C, we've got a rotting corpse of a poor adventurer who got trapped in here. And on that person, they have a bunch of gemstones and a potion of heroism. Hey, that's cool. Area D, we got nothing. Area E, we have the end of the ride. That is a trap that is located all the way up in Area 82, but we'll be getting to that when the time comes. There is, in fact, a secret door which can be opened. However, as we'll be getting into in Area 82, climbing up that thing without the aid of magic is impossible. Area F is an empty cell. Area G is a gray ooze, and this gray ooze is actually terrifying for a number of reasons. One, gray oozes are just, terrible because they break weapons, they break armor. But the important thing here is that while the gray ooze is under this 5 feet of water, it is effectively invisible, meaning it has advantage on all attacks and players have disadvantage on attacks against it. That means that with advantage, even though it's barely got a plus to hit, a +3, it's still likely that it's going to get some hits in. And even if it doesn't get hits in, if people want to go ahead and beat this thing up, they're going to be breaking their weapons against it, unless they got a magic weapon. And last here for the North Dungeons, we have the Lost Sword in H. Your players, when they look inside of this, otherwise empty and dark place, a glowing blade can be seen beneath the water near the back of the cell. And it's here where your players can get themselves a Crusading Short Sword. This Crusading Short Sword is actually pretty dope. It's a +1 short sword, and it is also sentient. This thing is in fact lawful good as well, so it'll go ahead and join the party. This thing communicates by transmuting emotions by whoever is wielding it, and this sword's purpose is to fight evil. This sword has some little properties to shed bright light, which is pretty cool. Anybody can go ahead and pick up this sword and use it as a +1 short sword. However, if you are lawful good, you can attune to this thing in 1 minute. And if you are attuned to this weapon, you can go ahead and cast Crusader's Mantle once per day. That is a pretty awesome effect. But of course, that ties back into, do you have alignment in your games, yes or no? If you don't have alignment in your games, it's once again one of those, are they just an outstanding citizen or are they, just a scumbag? So your players could have been transported to any number of those cells in there. But the thing is, what purpose does that serve other than just wasting time? Well, that's pretty much it. It is wasting time because while they are separated, some bad things can happen. Specifically because not only are there random encounters going to show up and potentially people could be behind, locked cells and won't be able to contribute to the fight, but it's also because Strahd visits the dungeon occasionally to see whether any characters have become trapped here. He can enter a cell assuming Misty form. So it doesn't actually give us a time frame, but I would go ahead and just leave that up entirely to the random encounter table, because you don't want to give your players a complete disadvantage, right? In Area 75, we have the South Dungeon, but what's interesting here is whether your players open up the door or they get teleported into one of these cells, they will hear someone call out to them. They'll hear a voice say, "Who's there?" This is coming from Emil, and you might remember Emil is in fact a werewolf that got, unfortunately, taken by Strahd because he has not been doing some great work for him. Emil is going to say, hey, I'm a resident of Valaki, and I got chased by direwolves all the way to the castle, and now I'm trapped here. Can you help me out? If you've got bleeding heart characters that are going to go ahead and help him out, then he's going to go ahead and join them. But here's the thing. Emil is looking to prove himself to Strahd. He needs to get back into his good graces, so at the most opportune moment, Emil is going to go ahead and turn on the party. So that means that basically he is going to wait until reinforcements arrive or enough of the party gets separated. Then he is going to go ahead and backstab the party. But if your players have already met with Zulika, Emil's wife, then that story can change, as Emil won't turn on the characters that reveal that they are allies with his wife, and he'll say, hey, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and try and get the heck out of here and reunite with all of the other werewolves. Once again, that'd be Castle Ravenloft stuff, but we'll cover that later on. In Area B, we have Forgotten Treasure. Located on the floor of this cell are 2,100 Electrum pieces, and you can scoop up 100 coins every minute. Tons and tons and tons of loot. Your players come here, they're going to be set for life. They're going to be kings. They're going to be able to, craft fortresses and stuff. It's going to be fantastic. In Cell C, we've got nothing. In Cell D, however, we have a dead dwarf, and this dead dwarf is wearing rusted plate armor. The dwarf's non-magical, but usable battle axe is nearby. In Cell E, we've got nothing. In Cell F, we have a dead wizard. Your players look in here and they can see this guy has been, just terribly wrecked up in here for quite some time. Strahd actually had some terrible fun time with him. Strahd captured and slowly bled this man to death. In Area G, we have the Hanging Bard. Once again, another person who got the terrible, terrible business from Strahd. This man was strung up and forced to, not drown. Of course, eventually, at some point, he drowned. And the only thing to be found in here is the smashed lyre underneath. Pretty sad. In Area H, we have another empty cell. So thankfully in Area 76, the torture chamber, this is a bit of a reprieve. The water here is only 3 feet high, not like 5 feet high in the cells. Your players make their way inside of here and they'll be able to see that not only is there's weird, creepy, area, but there's also a balcony overhead. The balcony is 10 feet tall, so people can reasonably make their way up there. If your players go ahead and start meandering about this place, then the dark, low shapes are going to form, and they are the bloated, terrible corpses of Strahd zombies. And when that encounter happens, go ahead and show them this art. Pretty creepy stuff. Your players look around this torture chamber, and there's all these zombies and stuff. Pretty creepy. Just imagine you're fighting in waist-high water, you're sluggish, you're moving all about. That would be a terrible time. In Area 77, we have the observation balcony. Your players can reasonably make their way up here from Area 76 because it's only 10 feet high. People could just raise up their hands and grab up there, or they could just use their buddy to go ahead and lift them up. They make their way up here and they'll just see, just 2 chairs that can overlook the torture chamber. And of course, there is a curtain behind them which they can move through. Now, of course, this is really showing off the kind of character that Strahd is, that he has a torture chamber, but more importantly, he has a observation room for the torture chamber. Pretty gnarly stuff. And now on to Area 78, the Brazier Room. Welcome to one of the deadliest rooms that has ever been constructed for all of D&D. This place is nuts. Located inside of here, your players can see a brazier. This brazier could have, in fact, been the bane of their entire existence because this allows Strahd and all of his minions to teleport around the land. But the thing is that your players can utilize this as well. Located at this brazier, underneath the hourglass, there is a nice little poem that reads out, "Cast a stone into the fire, violet leads into the mountain spire," etc., etc. So of course this works extremely well in English, and I presume the majority of you that are watching this do play in English. However, there is a select few people that do not play in English, and to that degree, unfortunately, you're gonna have to come up with some very convoluted, nonsensical thing to translate here, because rhymes only ever work in one language. So this thing is pretty easy to use. They're located on the rim of the brazier is a whole bunch of these colored stones. Should your players read all this stuff, they could probably get a pretty decent inkling here on where these locations are. If your players have been to the Amber Temple, then read if lore is what you seek, is pretty, reasonable to think. And with all these other ones, it's not unreasonable to think that your players would understand what these actually mean. So your players could theoretically go ahead and teleport the heck out of here. That is one of the only ways, really, to get out of Castle Ravenloft beyond, jumping or climbing down all the ways away. Tossing any one of these stones into the brazier causes it to light up, in which case the players have 5 rounds to make their way in there, should they desire. But if they don't, it simply just disappears. But that's not that big of a deal. It can go ahead and just throw another stone in there again. But here's the thing. This is one of the deadliest rooms ever. And why is that? Because there is 2 iron golems located in this room. Should your players decide to haphazardly attack one of these statues located in this room, or they attack the hourglass, both of these iron golems are going to animate, and they are going to wreak havoc and destruction upon your party. So yes, looking at the stats for these 2 iron golems, they are just extremely deadly. 20 AC, 210 HP, and of course look at all those attacks. Incredibly strong. We actually get some really fun tactics here on how these iron golems are going to operate. On that first round of initiative, both of them are going to use their poison breath and just fill this entire room filled to the brim with poison, and that's really bad because, the players have to make 2 saving throws. And of course, looking at that damage, each one doing 10 d8 points of poison damage. That is monstrous. That is 20 d8 points of poison damage coming onto the majority of the party in a single round. And of course, the DC 19 Constitution saving throw, it's more than likely the majority of people are going to fail. On subsequent rounds, these iron golems are going to do their traditional stuff. They're going to have a single sword attack, and they're going to have a single slam attack. Of course, the cool thing about these iron golems is that they are flavored to be knights on top of horses, which is pretty cool, honestly. These iron golems will massacre the majority of parties ever. Even if you're a level 10 party with full resources, it is still more than likely that 2 iron golems are going to wipe the floor. However, the caveat is, if there is nobody left in this room to attack, the golems do nothing. But of course, that is next to impossible for most groups to get away. Purely because as soon as the golems animate, the doors of the room magically slam shut. Forcing open one of these locked doors in the middle of combat requires a DC 25 athletics check. Each door has a AC of 15 and 25 HP, which is pretty tough. If your players don't immediately think to go ahead and try and bash through the door, they might be screwed. Of course, thankfully, they're in a room full of teleportation, and they could go ahead and teleport the heck out of here. But if you do not have people that are immediately, witty and creative enough to either teleport out of here or barge through one of the doors, then you are going to have a dead party at your hands. So to that degree, if you have a party that likes to, just beat face, then you are going to have to, suffer the consequences and wipe them, or you can go ahead and nerf the iron golems to some degree. In Area 79, we have the Western Stair. This is the left of the 3 doors here, and it's a long staircase that leads all the way up, and this, in fact, leads all the way back to Rahadin's office. However, what's really funny about this staircase is inscribed in the landing is a glyph of warding. Should your players go ahead and just simply, step over it, triggering it, a major image of Strahd von Zarovich is going to appear. And this is pretty cool. You can have Strahd say, "You have worn out your welcome. Whatever gods you believe in cannot save you now." Go ahead and have the players roll initiative. And this is once again highlighting the resource drain. If your players think that Strahd is right here, then they probably are going to, in fact, spend some resources. They may go ahead and cast some spells or whatever, in which case, that sucks because they lose some resources. However, there is a second thing to think about in regards of all these chance meetings with a fake Strahd. If your players think it's Strahd and go ahead and start spending resources, then they're wasting resources. However, if you condition them to think that it's always an illusion, they're always going to waste their first round doing nothing. And if they go ahead and meet the real Strahd, if they've been conditioned to believe that, that first round is going to be next to worthless if they're only, just swinging their sword and not doing anything special, or if they are casting cantrips and not doing anything special. So no matter which way, Strahd's getting a victory out of it. In Area 80, we have the center stair. Your players can go ahead and make their way here, presumably through Area 78. It's more than likely that's the case. Your players can go ahead and make their way up here and discover Area 81. In Area 81, we have the tunnel. What's very interesting here is characters who have a knowledge of stone cutting can tell that the passage is relatively new construction compared to the rest of Castle Ravenloft. That can glean some very important insight here. If your players know that this place is super old and ancient, it's hundreds and hundreds of years old, but then they see something that's relatively new, that may, cause them to be suspicious. Not that they shouldn't be any more suspicious of anywhere else in the castle, but But of course, the other important factor here is that a lingering fog limits visibility to a few feet. People cannot see through this thing at all. You shouldn't even show them the map if they're located here, or you should limit their image or vision or whatever. Your players are just making their way through here and they cannot see anything. And that's really bad because, of course, in the middle of this hallway, there is, in fact, a trap. With an active search of the area and a successful DC 20 perception check, your players can, in fact, find that trap door. But, of course, that's going to be a little bit difficult because they cannot see anything. The trap is activated if more than 100 pounds of pressure are put onto that floorboard, which, once again, we've been over. If you've got the lighter players wearing absolutely nothing, then yeah, nothing happens. But if you've got the, traditionally normal people that are carrying gear, then of course it's going to activate. This trapdoor works very quickly. Whoever is on this step when it occurs is going to go ahead and slide down the chute into Area 82. But the thing is that this trap resets, so your players, if they really, really want to stick together, can in fact go ahead and, jump down the slide. In which case, they'll slide all the way back down to Area 74E, but of course, they'll have their own set of issues if they're trapped in a waterlogged prison. In Area 82, the marble slide, the interesting thing about this noted here is that characters slide all the way down to the bottom. That's not big of a deal. They take no damage, which is cool because they're just sliding down and presumably they just splash right into water, which is pretty cool. But the slide contains no handholds and is too slippery to ascend without the aid of magic. What's interesting is that located all throughout the rest of Castle Ravenloft, it always specifically states that you can ascend an area with the aid of magic or a climber's kit. But here it does not say a climber's kit. Does that mean that you cannot use a climber's kit here? That's entirely your prerogative. In Area 83, we have the spiral stair. Your players can go ahead and ascend or descend from here wherever. And should your players go ahead and meander all about, they can find Area 83A, and you get a nice little exposition dump that you can go ahead and drop on them of a beautiful picture of a knight in the lead on a black horse wearing a fur-lined cloak, and a visored helmet of a wolf's head. This is, in fact, a depiction of Strahd's father, King Barov. This tapestry, if taken off, weighs 10 pounds and is worth 750 gold. However, if it is damaged, then it is worthless. 83 locations down. Next time, we're going to be hitting the Catacombs, Area 84. That's probably going to be its own video because there's so many individual locations there. It's absolutely a blast. This whole video series has been a blast. Going through the entirety of Castle Ravenloft really gets me thinking, and I really hope it gets you thinking. The fact that this place is just so intriguing, so unique, so diverse is just absolutely fantastic, and I absolutely love it. So go ahead and tell me, are you going to do anything about the prisons? Is Strahd going to show up if an individual gets trapped there and the players just run away? And are you going to do anything about the iron golems? Because, as written, those iron golems are going to mop the floor with any little party if they don't quickly make their way out of there. Go ahead and tell me all these things because I want to know. That is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my amazing patrons. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. That is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.